Hey y'all, and we're live. Welcome today. I have one of my favorite people. Her name is Delisha. She is an engineer and she graduated from the FAMU. All right, so all you rattlers out there, I already know how y'all are. I'm so sorry I went to PWI, as I learned when I interned at Morehouse. That's what they call what I went to. Was a PWI. And she is a co-host on the Femme Noir podcast. And so I'm excited to talk to her today. She posts some really good content if you're ever on her page. I don't know if it's open. I don't, so she's gonna have to go to her podcast. It's open.
Yeah.
You got to go to her podcast to find out if it's open or not. You know what I mean? And one of her discussions was about Black femininity. And I thought this was such an interesting topic, especially the way I have really been digging into what's called the Black women hero I think it's the hero complex. I can't think of the correct term right now, where we have this idea that we have to do everything ourselves. We have to, it has to be us to do it, that we start to bog ourselves down with so many tasks and obligations that we don't allow anybody to help. And that if we see our friend getting help, we now talk about them like, "Ooh, girl, you had somebody clean your house. Ooh, you can't even clean your," you know what I mean? We start to talk down about them. So I love the topics on her page in regards to what does Black femininity look like. So how are you, Delisha? Just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of your views.
So I am doing well. So first of all, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Like half the time when I get like all these comments and likes and things on my page, it's like, whoa, I wasn't expecting it to blow up like that. It was just something that I saw was interesting and was like, hey, what do you guys think about this? So, I mean, it's just kind of really weird and interesting times that we're living in, just watching a lot of things play out. So I will say it's wonderful because we're seeing like a lot of Black women break glass ceilings. Like, we now have our first Black woman on the Supreme Court. So, a lot of people are just doing a lot of really wonderful things that, maybe we didn't think that we would ever get to see in our lifetime. However, on the other side of that, then you also have to watch, Black women be attacked. So even when she was being, her confirmation hearings, I didn't watch any of that, only because it was like, I kind of had an idea of the type of questions and the things that she was going to be asked, and it kind of felt like, she was under attack.
Right.
And there is a woman who is overly qualified to sit in that position, has more than like twice as much experience as everybody combined, like all these credentials, and she got raked over the coals. So it's just very interesting. And that also kind of speaks to, what you were saying earlier, as far as like this whole superwoman complex, as to where we do feel like we have to do it all. And unfortunately, in some instances we do. But I mean, Black women and Black men, I'll just say Black people in general, I feel like there are hurdles that we have to jump over that other groups aren't, they don't receive kind of the same things that we do. And that goes all the way back to slavery. So, although the Willie Lynch letter, it has been debunked, is very true. Like, it was very purposeful in the fact of, they purposely tried to break up our families and pit us against each other. And, where we are today, that is a result of all of that. So it's just, it's a lot of layers to unpack. But yeah, so, any questions or any discussion or anything that you want to ask me, I'm happy to answer.
But you know what? You said something important about Judge Ketanji Brown, is that she was under so much. You know what? I didn't watch it either for the exact. You know what's interesting is I hate that we can't watch it for the exact reason you said. I could not watch her be overly qualified and that people rake her over the coals with basically, to me, some of the things that they said was like, so you're just up here to complain to her about Black America. You're not even questioning her ability at this point. And I think as Black women, we get that a lot. You're not even here with a purpose. You're
Right.
here to vent and talk to me any kind of way because nobody else will accept what you're saying. And I'm supposed to accept. You know what's interesting is I have been on this high horse about Will and Jada, right? Because my issue with Will and Jada is you guys don't like Jada because she's not Beyonce.
Mm.
Beyonce put up with Jay-Z for years, had to take her husband onto it. Now, I am married, right?
Mhm.
I understand when you work out your marriage. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is because she was ride or die, because she stuck it out with Jay-Z, we love Beyonce. Because Jada said, you know what, Will? I cried for weeks. After my 40th birthday, I told you not to throw. Right.
Right.
And so now I feel like they're misconstruing her words. It's not that I'm a Jada super fan, but what
Right.
I have been doing is following their relationship over time to where she said Will was very private. That Willow looked at Will one day and said, "Oh, mommy, look at daddy. He's so sad." And they said, "Why you say he's sad, Willow? He looks fine." Because there's a picture of a family in his head and it's not us.
Yeah. So
Nobody
Ooh.
wants to go back to those comments though. They just want to say
Mm.
Jada's toxic. Jada did this to Will. No, Will had a traumatic childhood. Will's dad used to throw his mom through walls. Will's dad made them go rebuild a building brick by brick down in some
Right.
downtown area in the freezing cold. Will's dad was a military vet. So that's a whole other thing. People don't talk about that aspect of it.
Right.
When I hear automatically as a therapist, you're a military vet, I start asking a different set of questions because you
Right.
go through a different set of circumstances. And my
Right.
military vets taught me this. So this isn't, oh, Jocelyn's just a thing. No, this is, I used to be over the military vets of the college. They used to
Mhm.
come into my office and they used to teach me about this culture and this language.
Right.
One of them literally said, these freedoms that we fight for you guys to have, it's hard for us to matriculate in them. We can't function in them. And so we will ride Jada to the end of the world because she finally at 40 said, I ain't doing it Will's way. Will can do it my way or he can get off this bus. You know what I mean? And we don't like that. Oh, she told him, like she was a black woman that didn't stand. It's why we can't stand Russell Wilson. Because Sierra decided Future wasn't healthy and Russell Wilson was. Now he's lame because he takes care of his family, because he's faithful to his wife. I mean, and this is just from assumptions. Don't y'all flood my time. Oh, he ain't. We don't know. We don't know. But what we do know is if he's cheating, apparently these folks are signing a non-disclosure agreement and they ain't saying nothing. So if he's doing anything, nobody's saying nothing. You know what I mean? But we know what Future on. It's obvious with his baby mamas, Bow Wow's baby mama included. Now she got one by Bow Wow, one by Future. It's
Yeah.
obvious what he's on. He says it in the songs. He's hopping planes and he ain't worried about nobody. So I think this idea that black women have to take on the weight of everybody else, right? To the extent that we sacrifice ourselves is a narrative that sometimes is portrayed. And then and
Oh,
then
absolutely.
go huh?
Yeah, I was about to say absolutely. And then also the perpetuation of those stories, it benefits other people. So of course they're going to continue to
Yep.
push that narrative, unfortunately. But even when it comes to Will and Jada, people also, and I'm like, I'm not the biggest Jada supporter either, but I'm like, I don't like people portraying her as like she's just this evil devil person. There's a lot of things that I don't agree with that she might have said or that she's done. But also, I think people forget the big picture of that, Jada did take a back seat for a very long time in their relationship. And again, she does what women always do. It's like, okay, I have children. I have to put the brakes on my career because I have to take care of my family.
Yep.
And people weren't seeing that and they just kind of jumped all over her. And it's like, wait a minute, like Jada did calm down a lot and she was kind of a housewife for a little bit,
Almost 20 years, wasn't it? I feel like I think of the last one was what Woo, when she was doing Woo, and then for a long time we didn't see nothing until almost Hawthorne.
So I kind of feel like Jada kind of had the opportunity to go more mainstream in her career, kind of like Will did when she was in Collateral. So that
Yeah,
was Jamie Foxx and Tom Cruise. So I
yeah.
kind of feel like she was kind of gearing up to go off into that lane, and she did like The Matrix and
Oh,
all
yeah,
of
The
these
Matrix, yeah.
movies.
But they were so far apart. If you think about when
Yes,
Collateral came out versus when The Matrix, I
right,
think it's Reload, it's like the third or fourth Matrix that she came with. They're so far apart. They're not
right,
together. Like if you look at Will's career when they
right.
started, yeah, yeah,
But again, that's kind of, the narrative that we've been told. Like,
yep,
men are able to go out and be the breadwinner and go get it, and the sky's the limit. And women, because we get married and we have kids, it's kind of like, oh, you have to put your husband and your children first. And it's kind of like, to a certain extent, but why do we really have to do that? Can we do both? Like,
right,
and now things are changing, so now you're starting to see more husbands who are house husbands, and they'll stay home
yep,
with the kids, although that's still a little bit, it's not as often as
accepted.
you would see a woman do it, but it is becoming more of a mainstream thing. But even within the Black community, people kind of shy away from that as well, because it's kind of like, man, what, like, you living off your woman? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So there are also these narratives within our community that we kind of tell ourselves, or that we shy away from. And it's like, well, what's wrong with that? Like, why can't she be the CEO and I'm making sure that the kids are taken care of? I'm checking their schoolwork, I'm running them to play dates, I'm washing clothes, I'm cooking. Like, why does it have to be a certain way? Why are we like that?
I think that's a good question. Within our community, this narrative that we've built into it with each other. And I think you made an important part earlier about slavery. When you go back, I love Dr. Joy's book about post-traumatic slave syndrome, because she literally says, I asked the question, why do people of melanin skin all over the world act the way they act? That was literally the premise of her research, and she did this digging and came out with this research. And I think our culture sometimes tries to negate the fact we went through this Black Holocaust, that this stuff doesn't exist, and then and if the father is pulled out of the home, then what does this look like? The mother has to raise the kids, the mother has to raise the sons, the mother has to go in the field. We have to do all of this work. And I think sometimes our culture, it is becoming more accepted that there are some stay-at-home dads. But I think that is a good question to say, if somebody is working, does it matter who's working? And is it a case of whoever can make the most money, right? And then can the person be with the kids? Because I think we forget a lot of times, if the woman works, she's still doing the majority of the housework with the kids, with the homework, I can say over the pandemic, my husband was working, I was working from home, and he helped with homework one time. And my son was like, mommy, I knew, like, daddy said it can't be two answers. And I'm like, yeah, his crazy textbook, it can. And Michael was like, what do you mean? Because over the pandemic, I'm the one that was working with the kid. And so he was like, he said, so I just didn't pick two answers. I'm like, dude, but to tell your dad that it can't, because that wasn't what they normally did. They did other stuff. They were doing the PE part of it, because he had to do PE and record it and all that. So dad was doing that stuff. So you start talking math, and it's like, I'm helping, but Common Core looks a little different. So sometimes women do take on that role. And sometimes it is an option where you say, anybody that's ever been married, if I give my husband this task, I'm not gonna like the way it's spent time.
Right.
You just know,
Yeah.
but they are capable, and so sometimes you have to say, I don't care if I like how that's being done. Like,
That's
we have to. It's a
done.
partnership at
Right.
some point, right? If I'm doing, he's doing, and in the community, I think sometimes we forget that. When I hear men say, I hate this question. What do you bring to the table? It's like, well, traditionally, women weren't supposed to bring nothing to the table.
Right.
And if I
Because
bring my
you
paycheck,
provide everything. Exactly. Like, you go out, you hunt, you kill, you do all that, you bring it back, I cook it, and
feed
yeah.
it to the
So,
kids.
right, exactly.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, girl, we could go down a rabbit hole with all of this stuff. But again, it's very interesting. I say this all the time, and some people might laugh at me, but I really do feel like mental health care should be free for Black people.
Mm,
Because we've been at a disadvantage in this country for over 400 years. Like,
yeah.
just because slavery legally has ended doesn't mean that there aren't still systems in place that try to
Yeah.
keep us at a disadvantage. And then also, like we were saying, sometimes we do it to ourselves. So in the case of like Future, Sierra, Russell Wilson, I don't understand all the hatred for this man who is doing what he is supposed to be doing. Like, he honors his wife. He loves his children. He's a great football player. Like he's doing all of these really wonderful things, but yet and still all you hear about from him from, the black community, he's a square. Like he's
Right. That is that is the number one. They don't say he's a champion who won football games.
right.
The,
Yeah.
the
So,
first tagline is he's a square.
yeah,
Why?
I don't get it. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, who cares? Like Sierra did exactly what she should have done. She
She
was,
did the healthy thing. I think we are
yeah,
so used to the toxic way of
yeah,
how we should do things, the hard
right.
way. You know what? There's this guy, this financial planner I follow, and he literally said, "You guys want to talk about how your kids should work for everything." He said, "Let me tell you, these people out here with money, where I am, their kids ain't working for nothing until they work for the family business. They work hard so that their kids can have a different path, so that they can join them in building stuff for generations that will sustain." He said, "You're telling your kids they should work for it." He said, "If working for it worked, every black person will be rich because every black person most of the time works
That's
hard."
all we do. Yeah, that's all we know how to do.
Right.
So, I mean, it is very interesting. So, there are all of these generational curses and these things that we need to break, but it becomes okay, who's going to do this work? Like, we
Yep.
know how to pass on these narratives very well. And it's like, okay, now we're here. Where did that get us?
Yep. Who's writing a new one? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you think we get there? How do we come to this place where black women can be feminine and kind of define what feminine is for them? Because I feel like a lot of times we have so many definitions of femininity, but
Mhm.
also everybody else is defining what feminine is. If we're at this place where we're trying to that we could be on the cusp of something different, how do we define femininity and how do we get to that place where we're kind of being able to implement it?
Ooh, good question. So I think there needs to be spaces where black women are just allowed to be.
Mm.
So I think a big part of it is that we're always on all the time. Like work, even when you come home, you have to be on. So there's not much downtime to just, unwind. So I think what black women need to do is that we need to be better at saying no. Like even I won't even say lovingly because I was going to say lovingly. Like no, just say no. No, that doesn't
It's a whole
serve you.
sentence.
No, that doesn't benefit me. Or even, not even just a straight up no, just no, I can't do that right now. Like I have something else going on, but I can get to you at a later date and time. So just creating the space for yourself to be like, even with me, when I come home, I'm like, I'm going to do something nice for myself. One thing, even if it's just light some candles so the house smells good and it's a welcoming presence. But
Yeah.
me, I'm very big on bubble baths. So every
Mhm.
night, I don't care what's going on, like I will take my 30 minutes or however long to just soak in the tub and to just unwind. So I think you have to purposely carve out something specifically for yourself and say, this is me time. This is just for me. So I think if you start setting those boundaries, then people won't have a choice but to respect it. So I think first and foremost, that's something that needs to happen. And then long term, I just think that we need to unlearn a lot of, basically, and I'll watch my language, a lot of the crap that we've been fed. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
in people, it's not like people are intentionally trying to hurt us, but a lot of the things that our mothers and our grandmothers and all of the women that came before us, a lot of the ways that they do things, or it was a means of
Yeah.
survival. They were in
Right.
survival mode, so it's kind of like unknowingly they pass down these messages and these lessons, and it's like, okay, this is no longer beneficial to me.
Right. We don't need this right now.
Yeah,
One of my friends talked about how we were at war with organization within. We were just kind of going back and forth, a lot of push pull. And he said, well, such and such still got the bow out. Like we're done. And she's still like,
yeah,
who wanted, who could get it? And so I think that's a good point that we have had to survive for so long
mhm,
that our femininity has been chipped away at. And
right,
so when you have to survive, you don't look at what's masculine or feminine. You look at what do I do to get meals, food on the table? What do I do so that my kids are loved? What do I do so my family is safe?
Right.
Right? There are times that our families weren't safe because people didn't like Black people moving in certain neighborhoods, and so you did what you had to do to protect everybody involved and make sure they live to see another day. So I
Right.
think that is very important to think that the habits they learned kept them alive. But now that we are alive, how are we living?
Right.
Right? What is it? What is our lives looking like? You kept us alive to keep surviving, or you kept us alive so that we could get to a place that one day we could open up. I always think about there was a thing I read where they said they asked their mother, well, why do you always serve the table scraps? I don't know. Grandma always saved it. Grandma, why did you save them? I don't know. And
Right.
so finally they called great grandma. Well, great grandma, I got it from great grandma. Great grandma, why did you save table scrap? I gotta know because my mom does it. She gets so upset. It's literally nothing, like throw it in a pot and they save it. Why? And she said, well, it was the Great Depression. We
Mm,
had to save table scraps because we may need them as a meal for the next day. So a
right.
lot of times we do these traditions and we do these things. We have no idea where they came from.
Right.
And in this day and age, we don't need to save table scraps,
Right.
right? Grocery stores have sales all the time. They're throwing out stuff. So if they're throwing out stuff, more than likely, you know, it's not a practice everybody as a whole needs to do is
Right.
save the table scraps. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that even speaks to it's important to, like, first of all, it's important to know who you are, but you get to know who you are through family. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's very important that you sit down and you talk to your elders and you ask them questions about, well, where did our family come from? Because once you have those conversations, then it provides understanding of, oh, this is where this comes from, or this is why we do such and such. So that way you're able to, once you're able to understand where some of these things come from, then you're able to dismantle them. You know what I'm saying? So now it's like once you start to recognize some of those negative patterns or those toxic traits, once you recognize it, it's like, okay, now that I understand where it comes from, I have to ensure that I don't pass that down to my children. So that's how you start to break some of those things, so that way the next generation is better off than where you started, and that's how you start to produce change. Like, it's very slow, but somebody has to take it up on themselves to say, I'm not going to do this
Right.
anymore. I don't want my children to do this. So there's a different way to be, but it takes the person to say, we're not doing this anymore. Like, this is not
Right.
healthy. Yeah. So
And then recognizing that, right? That it's not healthy. So there's something that has to change. I think that is very important. And I like what you said about self-care, about that every day you do something for you. I think that's a habit you have that a lot of women struggle with, especially
right.
Black women, that we don't take any time for ourselves. I was literally telling my friend that sometimes I would share to the point I was depleted. So you can, and
Yeah.
then if I thought about myself, I was considered selfish. So when you do that and you carry that mindset around, it's like, well, I can't do anything for myself. I'm considered selfish, as opposed to caring for yourself so that you can give to others. Because if you are literally, I remember at a point in my life that I was so depleted from running around and volunteering for this organization, doing this, because the constant thing I got was, well, you're single, you don't have kids. And so my retort start being, I'll stay single with no kids if I keep running around for your behind. Like, I'll never get married. Like, get this off my plate. They have, oh, we're gonna put you over the happy committee, you're over this committee, you're over that committee. It was just too, between my job and the church I was at, it was too
Right.
much. But
Yeah.
because I was single, they felt that they would keep. And I remember one of my friends was a working professional, and I would say, you're gonna have to start pushing back, or you're gonna stay single. Like, as long as you're single, they're gonna keep making that excuse. We're giving it to you because you're single. You need to start telling them what I started. Hey, keep giving this to me, I'm gonna stay single, and I don't want to. This is not single by choice. This is, I haven't found the right fit. Back up out my face. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, even that is toxic, you know what I'm saying? So why do we put more value on a married person's time or a mother's time versus somebody who is single? Like, time is time, they're equally
We don't own
valued.
it, right?
Exactly. So, even that is something that needs to be broken as well. And I got the same thing because I'm in a relationship now, but I was, divorced. I still don't have kids yet. But people, oh well, you're not doing anything. And then when we were in the pandemic, it's like, oh well, everybody's at home, so you should have time to do. No.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I feel like I was actually even more busy during the pandemic than I was when everything was normal, because it was just like everybody had this assumption of, oh, well, you don't have anywhere to go, so you could do X, Y, and Z. And it's like it doesn't work like that, you know. So
Terrible. It was very true. I literally said that. Everybody could say, "Oh, I have all this time," and I'm like, "I do not. I had a baby in the pandemic. I was working in the pandemic, telehealth, and therapy was through the roof. It's still through the roof now. Like I am literally like when I'm trying to find people a therapist, to the point where I was like, one of my colleagues was like, "I'm full. Everybody you're calling is full. You're just gonna have to stop this coaching and open up a practice," which is what I'm in the process of doing now, because everybody's so full. And I'm
yeah,
like, well, I can't, I have nobody to refer them to. I'm going to have to just take these people that I find, which is fine. You know what I mean? I had a good stretch because my caseload in trauma was very heavy. And so
mhm,
now I can kind of control the population that I take. But I do feel like it is, when I was in the pandemic, I didn't have all this time. And people did make assumptions that you're home, so you
right,
have more time. No, I barely had time when I wasn't home. Now that
right,
I'm home, I actually have a normal set of balance. I'm not one to, and they talk about, even when we all came home to work, people
hmm,
actually worked longer because they were home. That they were
yeah,
working more hours because we were home. That we were actually having less of a balance than if you just went to work, did your work, and rushed home and had your time. That you
right,
actually spent way more time at work than you did anything else.
right,
So I
yeah,
do feel like that's important, that balance. And what I've heard you say a lot of a lot is the boundaries. And then the intentionality, right? We
hmm,
can't decide what people should be doing with their time. We don't own their time. So you need to
right,
be intentional about what you're divvying out. How many people you're hiring, how many people in your, even in our lives, what does this look like to be intentional with our time, with our friends, with our family, with our thoughts, with our words, instead of saying, I know that I quit saying, asking why people were pregnant. The year that I had my oldest, 7 of my friends had miscarriages. I don't ask why you don't have kids. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Yeah,
yeah,
because I don't know why. One of them could, I mean, they could have done it and never had another kid. You know what I'm saying? And one of them, I didn't know, had a miscarriage for like 5 or 6 years. People don't go around plastering on their forehead, I have
right,
trauma, leave me
right,
alone. It's, you need to be considerate of people's lives and times and how they feel. And you need
right,
to leave them alone, right? Oh, why you don't have kids? What if you just don't want them? Or
right.
what if I tried and I'm burying my 10th baby? You don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly. And that's something that I talk to like my friends about all the time, because I have older people in my family. Well, when are you gonna get married again? Or, you're starting to get up there, like, aren't you scared? When are you gonna have a child? And those
Out
things,
of there.
they I mean, it comes from a loving place.
Well-meaning place,
Yeah,
yes.
it comes from a loving place, but it's just like you said, like, there are things that people don't talk about. You don't know if I've lost a child. You
Right.
don't know if I might not be able to conceive. Or like you said, maybe I just don't want to. You just never know anybody's story. And then it's like you're gonna feel bad if this person breaks down crying because you just reopened a wound that they've been trying to
Heal
heal
from.
from.
Yep.
So it's well meaning, but it's also none of your business. You know what I'm saying? Like, we
Yeah.
don't go around asking married people, like, oh, so when's the last time you slept with your husband? Or y'all need to have more kids. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Right, because let you have too many kids, then it's when y'all gonna stop.
no,
When y'all
exactly.
gonna quit having
You know
kids.
what I'm
Like,
saying?
that's enough,
So
don't you think?
right. So it's like, where do we draw the line? Like, who cares how many kids this person has? Like, if they're happy and they're healthy and they're taken care of,
Right.
God bless them. Great. Exactly. You don't want to have kids. Cool. That's your business. You don't have to. So how does minding the business that pay you, how does that
How
hurt
does
you?
that work out for you? Right, right. Because I started telling them, I said, as soon as we gonna have a second kid, I said, as soon as y'all sign up for this babysitting list, so I can have a date night
That
with my
part.
husband. Because people
Exactly.
are not gonna tell you how hard it is raising kids. That you're now responsible for a whole human being, and that,
Hmm.
ooh, honey, can you babysit? Well, okay,
Right.
so it's gonna take away from the time of me and my husband that we used to have, and now you are begging me to do it again, like to
Right.
relive the.
Just to
We
say,
just
oh, it's so cute. The baby's so
It's
cute.
cute if it ain't
And
keeping you up at night. You know
right,
what I mean? It's cute
right,
when you not. It ain't cute when you ain't getting no sleep.
right. Exactly. So, I mean, it's just people don't really think about what they're saying, and again, I feel like that's conditioning as well, you
Yeah.
know. So it's not like people are really taking the time to think about what it is that they're saying. Sometimes people say things because they don't know what else to say.
Right.
So, and that's something else that we got to stop doing as well. Like, it's okay to not say anything.
Anything.
Yeah,
Silence is golden. Yeah.
right. Yeah. So,
So, alrighty. So I love that we have delved into about femininity, black portrayal in the media. I mean, this has been a really good conversation. And so, do you have any final thoughts? And then, what is your confession before we wrap up about just how you've talked about changing the narrative, what we should do individually, what we should do collectively as a culture.
mhm.
Is there a definition you have for what femininity kind of is? I know you have the Black Femme Noir Files, but is there like a definition you guys go by for what this looks like?
So to me, I kind of feel like femininity is however you want to show up. So I think femininity, the way that it's normally used is kind of through a Eurocentric lens.
Hmm.
So that's more of your, you know, the girls with the long hair and the thin and, you know, the makeup, or in the black community, it's kind of more of your voluptuous. So kind of like your Beyonce is your gold standard, right? So we'll go back to Beyonce and Jada. So Beyonce would be your gold standard of femininity. Jada would be kind of like the polar opposite of that, because right now, you know, she's rocking like a really short
Oh yeah,
haircut,
she has no hair. Yeah, she cut it
right,
all off.
due
Yeah.
to alopecia. So, you know, a bald head is kind of more of a masculine trait. But what I do love about Jada is that she challenges those narratives. Like,
Yep.
I think she looks very regal, although it wasn't her choice to have to cut her hair. She's killing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, she, to me, she was one of the best dressed people at the Oscars. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, you don't have to be tracked up, or you don't have to have on all of this makeup to be considered a really beautiful woman. It could be anything. It could be locks. It could be braids. It could be a fade. It could be whatever you want it to be. So I think like we need to keep challenging that narrative, and, you know, accepting like black women in all shades, shapes, colors, like however you want to show up, as long as you own it. So to me, femininity is owning what you have and being proud of it.
Nice. So like your authentic self. You're showing up as who you are,
Right.
and what you want to show up as, not what people tell you, not what culturally it is, who you are and how you want to show up. I
Exactly.
love that. All right. What's your confession?
Ooh, my confession. So I guess my confession is like, I struggle with these things as well. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So although I hate that question of when are you gonna get married, you know, are you gonna have kids and all that, and it's like, you know, yes, I would like to. I would like to, but you know, I don't control that. You know what I'm saying? I can control it to a certain extent, but these are things that I do, you know, I am concerned about. So,
Mhm.
you know, they happen when they happen. You know, God's timing is perfect. So whenever it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And, you know, I'll be okay with that. So I guess that is my confession. I'm like, you know, I would like an answer to that question too, but I don't need you to like constantly
To
like,
highlight, you know what, and that brings to light something else, that people could have these fears or these questions themselves, and you asking it out loud brings
right,
out some vulnerability. They may
right,
not want to talk about these things. It could be I'm struggling
exactly,
with these answers myself, and you
right,
asking it is just highlighting that I'm struggling. I don't want to talk. I don't want to be that vulnerable with you in a room full of people. That these
right.
questions are becoming very, as opposed to everybody having kids. I remember being in a small group, and me and my husband were the only ones that had, and ours, I mean, we didn't plan. We were still in grad school. We looked up and we were pregnant.
Mm,
So everybody else in the room had to go through in vitro. It was like five
yeah,
couples, and everybody but us, three minimum, had to go through in vitro.
yeah.
And so we talk about this, but this is like really becoming
Hmm.
something that is a really serious, deep topic. Like, it's not just an average everyday topic. And I know some men are saying, well, we don't know even how to, it's a very awkward place because we don't know what to talk about. But I think if you're around somebody long enough and you think in your mind if that topic could be vulnerable for them or if it could be a struggle for them, if it's not happening, you probably don't need to bring it up, right? If you
Right.
don't see a kid, if they haven't announced it, you probably are okay not asking why they don't have any, because you don't know their story. If they've been married 20, 15, 5, 10
Right.
years and there are no kids popping out, I think you should leave that alone because you don't know why they don't have kids. It could be a choice, but
Right.
9 times out of 10, something
There's
has
something going on behind closed doors that you aren't privy to. Yep,
right,
exactly.
that you are not privy to. So thank you for that vulnerable confession to say the questions that I'm being asked, I'm struggling with myself. Hence why I don't want to be asked, which is true. We don't want to be asked about our vulnerabilities. And usually when this question is asked, it's at a family reunion, right?
Right.
You know, what's funny is there's a joke I said that
Right, and I'm like, it's different if it's like a one-on-one conversation, okay,
right.
but it's always like grandma's over here and you know your uncles and it's everybody and you're in the
And
house.
you're dating, her husband is here, right? So when y'all having kids, it's like
Right. Yeah. It's like, are we really finna talk about this right now in front
right
of
now.
everybody? Yeah. So yeah.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. All right, guys. So May, we're taking the month off, but in June and July, we have some really cool things coming up. I got some chefs going to teach us how to make some cool summer meals. I got a sex therapist coming on so we can talk about intimacy. And so summer is about to be lit on the podcast. But May, it's my birthday month, so we about to take a break. And May is also lit in real life. Like, we got graduations, we got engagement parties to go to. 4 of us in my family have birthdays. Me, my mom, my son, my brother-in-law, all of us are in May. So May is about to be a beast. So I am not even gonna try. I may go live every now and then, but I ain't even gonna try to be consistent in May. We're gonna head on over to June, and I will see you guys then. Bye.